All right, welcome everybody.
All righty. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the BBC. We have a hopefully info-packed full 90-minute show tonight. As our guest, we have Peve Peverson and his community. Welcome to all of you. I don't know what we call you. Do we call you Peevers? But welcome for coming. We heard that you might have some interest in CoE, which is our abbreviation for Chronicles of Illyria. And so, Peverts, there you go.
No,
No?
P-verts. No.
No Peverts, okay.
Not P-verts, no. No.
So, Peeve nicks that one. Sorry, guys.
No, we don't have any particular name. Just anything but whatever they tell you we should be called. Anything else.
Anything else, right. Awesome stuff. So, Peeve, glad to hear. We're not getting feedback now, so you've obviously hopped over
Yeah,
computers.
I realized I was on the wrong computer, so it was like bleeding and everything. I was very confused, but we got it settled. It should be good now.
Awesome. Not any problem at all. Great to have you here, as I say, and your followers. So, what we're going to go over tonight is we're going to kind of like go over, what makes Chronicles of Illyria different from most of the other games that are either already out there and people are playing or in development. And Pete, one of the first things I wanted to ask you was, how did you actually get to hear about Chronicles of Illyria, and what got you interested in it?
How did I first hear about it? I think a viewer led me onto it, and as my viewers know, for years, all I do is rant about how nothing is as good as Ultima Online, and I just most modern day MMOs are about just following quest chain after quest chain after quest chain after quest chain, and becoming like max level, and then just doing raids or dungeons and hoping that whatever loot you've been dreaming about finally drops after 5 million times fighting the same boss over and over. And as my viewers know, I could go on for like hours about that, but I've been wanting an MMO where they make just a large interactive just open game world, and basically put it in the hands of the players and just like let them run with it. And this has been the closest thing to what I would have done with an MMO that I've ever seen. So I'm all on board.
Awesome stuff. You and I share a lot in common then, because I first started playing Ultima Online back in 1997.
Oh yeah,
when it had first come out, and you didn't have Trammel back then, and it was all about
the good days.
Yep, it was all about player-made content. There really weren't quests and quest hubs and these kinds of things that people you kind of like get your handheld nowadays. And I've got some of the images that we'll be going over, and some of the things we'll be addressing throughout this stream. Will actually specifically, in fact, I made a cartoon about that. Hurrying up to max level, and then kind of like just raiding kind of thing, But let me, for the benefit of your viewers who might not be that familiar, let me just give a very, very quick overview of CoE, and then we'll start kind of like going into each subject. And guys, I apologize. There is so much content. It's almost crazy. I've broken it down into 25 categories, and even just spending 2 minutes on each category, which means we can't do more than a very, very brief overview. And then like a minute for Peve to make a comment or ask a question, and me try and answer. Well, that's already like 75 minutes, and some of these topics, some of these kind of like areas, we could do like a 90-minute stream all by itself. So if you have questions, try ask them in the chat. And those of you who are our regular viewers and might be able to answer, go ahead and answer in chat for them if you can, and we'll try get everybody handled. So I guess the first thing, if I was asked to kind of like very briefly summarize what is CoE, Chronicles of Lyria. I think on its most basic level, I'd have to say that CoE is an up-and-coming MMO being developed by Soulbound Studios, which is an indie studio. But even the slightest of scratches on the surface, if you kind of like go into it and look at their website and everything like that, of that description, it starts to reveal a very ambitious and very complex, exciting and visionary project. At least in my mind, it is. Current MMOs, and again, I'll have to watch one of Peeps' Twitch streams at one point, but I'm of the same thing. You know, current MMOs for the most part, they basically just seem to be a fucking repackaging of the same generic theme park genre kind of thing, where you're chaperoned through the game towards certain activities or outcomes, and all the while you're being told, "Oh, it's your choice," when really, you know, you don't.
You are speaking my language 100% right now. You have no idea.
Exactly, and it's what Soulbound Studios are doing, kind of like by introducing some unique features and systems, and basically integrating and tweaking, you know, a large majority of systems that are already in existence. CoE makes that statement a reality kind of thing. You know, you will actually be able to do what you want to do pretty much in a game, you know, within the constraints of it, like you really haven't in any other world before, even more so than Ultima Online. And in fact, it kind of like it pushes that envelope so far that Soulbound Studios are referring to it as a multiplayer evolving online world, which is kind of like a new genre they're trying to define. I guess of which it's called as a meow is the acronym for it. But you know, and it's when we're about to start going over the individual features in a moment, and when I use the phrase typical MMO, I really mean it in a generic sense. I mean, I fully get and comprehend that for almost every example I give, there's at least one and often more other MMOs out there that might have something similar or don't fall into that stereotyping that I'm doing. But obviously, we don't have time to kind of like itemize and list each one kind of. So, without further ado, Noz, if you can put up screen 001, please. We are going to start at the very, very beginning of when you will start playing the game. The game is still pre-alpha at the moment. It's still in development. But what we're looking at doing is the first thing you'll obviously do, which is what everybody does, is when they log in, you got to create a character, right? And
Right.
when you start in a regular game, and some of the customization these days in games is just phenomenal. I mean, you know, if you go back to our Ultima Online days, it was like, boom, male or female, and your name, you know, and that was
And
about
it's
it.
the same face, and then you have a few different skin tones, and like that's it. That's
Oh,
all you got.
and the hairstyles. Don't forget the
Oh
hairstyle.
yeah. The page boy haircut, very
The
fashionable.
the the people running around with neon blue hair. It's brilliant stuff. So but typically in a regular MMO is once you've created that character, you're done. And you can play that game for 1 month, you can play that game for 10 years, and generally speaking, that character is going to look the same. He hasn't aged, he hasn't, you know, you might be able to cosmetically change a hairstyle or something like that in game, but that's about it. It remains the same. Whereas what will happen in Chronicles of Illyria, you'll initially customize your character, and there are like 8 tribes to choose from. We don't have races, there are tribes, and unfortunately we won't be able to deep dive into those too much, but you'll later on even be able to do kind of like genetic mutations, for want of a better word, between the tribes as you get onto your second and third characters. And you start off basically as a youth, and you progress, and you progress basically until either you died in combat or whatever the case might be, or you become an old fart and you die literally of old age. And as you age, depending upon what you're doing, yeah, let's say that you're a scholar in town, right, and eats a lot, you're actually going to put on weight. But if you're an adventurer and you go out and you're swinging a two-handed axe, you're actually going to improve your musculature. And and your character will gain scars or tattoos or get sunburned and everything like that as you go through the gameplay.
Sunburns too, really?
You will get sunburns. It'll be part of the
Sunburns.
survival
Okay.
system, which we'll go over. So, any questions you have about this at the moment? Because after this, we'll skip to the next.
I mean, the moment I heard sunburns, I didn't expect to hear that. I didn't know that you get scars and stuff too. That's amazing. So each character by the end of it all will be unique in its own right. Like you'll have stuff that you'll remember how you got that.
That's correct.
Which even though your character will inevitably die, like even just looking at your character will tell a story, which that's amazing.
Exactly, and we'll go also. We'll be tackling storylines in a little bit as well. Noz, if we can go to screen 002, please. And screen 002 is about, what do I have here? Boom, 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 boom. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so in screen 2, basically, it's about starting out, and when you start out, again, in your typical MMO, you're going to start out in the newbie area, right? You're going to start out in the newbie area. You're going to go through a tutorial, and it's going to teach you how to do this, how to use your inventory, how to swing a sword, blah, blah, blah. And then you basically, and we'll go through this again in a little while, you then only certain parts of the world are open to you because you're a newbie. And you're going to get wrecked because there are the bigger bosses and everything like that in some of the other parts of the world. Whereas what happens in Chronicles of Illyria, you can start as a member of an existing family. You can start as a ward of the state, which is basically like an orphan. You can choose where on the map you wish to start. You can travel wherever on the map you want. This is already right from the get-go. It is up to you as to where you're going, what you're doing, and how you want to play the game. It's not for the game to shepherd you in certain directions, kind of thing,
Right.
And that to me is a very, very key difference. Right from your very first kind of like 30 minutes of experience of gameplay between like your regular game and Chronicles of Illyria. What's your input and thoughts on that?
I mean, have a destination you're planning to go. I guess you got to plan your trips wisely. By the sound of it,
you will, and again, there's a lot of people that are obviously, our Discord has over 1,000 members in it. There are a lot of large communities forming even before the game is starting.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things that I've witnessed that just makes me think that this game, like the community itself, is like pushing it up to a level where it can succeed, because everyone is like, they're building their lives before the game's even out, because they have to, because they want, whenever they launch the game, they want there to be all this history and stuff already in place. So everyone's already deciding what settlement they're going to live in, under what what town, what city, what duchy, what kingdom. It's insane the amount of like organization that the community has made with all their own like back end lore and stuff. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's going to be, I'm going to, the game is a game of conflict. I'll touch on that almost towards the end of the stream, but the game is about conflict right from the get-go. And it's not just about your regular sword and board, but there's a lot of political and intrigue and just basically almost like, whether you want to call it Game of Thrones type thing. CoE refers to it as Dance of Dynasties. But there's a lot of shit talking and trashing and propaganda and gossip and everything. And I've got to say, I'm floored at the amount of it. And I've been playing MMOs for 20 years, and I've never seen anything on this scale. There's not even an alpha out, and some of us are already kind of like sworn enemies of fuck you, no, fuck you, with people we've never met. It's crazy. We're fighting. So, no,
are you serious? You already have your nemesis picked out.
Oh, we have. There are some rivalries that are just my God, it's amazing.
Oh God,
But
I'm so excited for that.
it's funny. It's very cool.
I'm good at the
But it is
backstabbing,
funny.
so
Yeah. There's like, yeah, I'm going to assassinate you right away, kind of all that kind of shit. No, you're a dick. Well, I'm coming down to you. So anyway, Noz, if we can move over to screen 3, please, which is progress, and it kind of like it piggybacks on what we've just kind of like stated here, but kind
okay.
of like in a typical MMO, in a typical game.
I love the
I
graphic,
don't
by the way.
have. Yeah, I've got
Thank you.
classes versus roles. I'm not sure if I missed one there, but
Uh, did I change that? You know what? Let's do that. Let's do class versus roles. That's not a problem
progression
at
is
all.
next if we want to
Yeah,
touch on that.
progression is next. Not any
Yep.
problem. So let's talk about class versus roles. Basically, again, in most MMOs, you get to choose whether you want to be the ranger, whether you want to be the shaman or the paladin or whatever. And sometimes you can kind of like make hybrid roles where you're half of one and half another, or even kind of like three. A trio of them. We don't have classes in Chronicles of Lyria. What we have is skills, and you can go down whichever or as many of the skill trees as you want. There isn't a cap on a level of a skill. In fact, the devs have said that to be legendary at any given skill, it might take you 2 to 3 years to get there. You're not going to power level it in a matter of like a couple of weeks or something like that.
There's gonna be people trying though. That's for damn sure.
They are. So if you want to be kind of like a beekeeping adventurer who also does cartography, you can do that. Because it's the role, and there's I don't have it up here. Again, there was just so much to try and cram in, but there's this big, huge skill flower tree, and rather than it being kind of like a regular skill tree, which branches off and everything like that, it's more like a radial flower, for want of a better word. You start off in the middle, and you can branch out into any one of them you want, and you can pick ones, from opposing areas, and it's pretty phenomenal. It really is. It's customization like I've never ever seen it before.
Yeah. Do we have a link to those skills, or is that?
We don't, but I will provide links to the website and
Okay.
everything like that, and I can actually put together some of the stuff for you later on.
Okay.
That you can then share back out to your community. If we started going into the skill tree now, we could spend 20 minutes on that alone, just explaining it, kind of
Okay.
thing, And then it
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
fine.
oh, good. Now we can't get to the next list stuff. Noz, if you can then put up the next plate, please. Plate 4, which is progress. And this will be piggybacking on what we had talked about in terms of the storyline. And you can see I made that cartoon there. We did not have this set up. For those of you watching, Peeve and I did not set this up ahead of time to where he said that, yeah, you're doing the same quest over and over again to try and get that one bit of
Yeah,
loot.
this was not my idea right here, but this looks like something I would have made myself.
Yeah, I mean it's exactly that. It's like you grind and you reach max cap, and you wait for the devs to come out with some new content, or oh, now we're raising the skill level from a cap of 50 to a cap of 60. Again, I want to make it clear there is no cap in this game. Even like Ultima Online, which you could relatively customize by you had what, it was a maximum of 600 points, and you could have as many skills as you wanted to, not more than 100. So you could kind of like be GM in 6 skills, or you could kind of like be at 50% in 12, etc. This is like that, except you don't even have the cap of 600. And what will happen is if you don't practice your skills, they will atrophy over time. So it's not like you can become a great blacksmith and then not play it for 3 months and go back and still expect to be a great blacksmith.
Because you're going to forget how to do it.
Yep, exactly. It's like your muscle memory is kicked in and you've forgotten what to do, kind of stuff, And so In Chronicles of Illyria, you start with a soul. And understand here, what I'm trying to state is that your soul is actually your character. The avatar, or like the character that you normally play in most games, which you get one of, is literally just the container that carries your soul around through that lifetime. Remember that it ages. It'll at some point die. And what we have is they reckon that you'll get between 4 to 12 months of gameplay out of your soul with your soul spark before you have to use another soul spark to carry on playing. And when you die, basically, you'll come back as another character, within your family, if you've got heirs and everything like that. And so, if you were the king, you can, your heir is a prince and you inherit the prince and he becomes the king, kind of thing, right? And he will still have the inherent traits of those skills that your ancestor learned. They won't be like, let's say I was a master in diplomacy. When I come back as a prince and reincarnate as a prince, I won't be a master of diplomacy because I'm just starting out again. But I've inherited those traits from my ancestor, and I will ramp up to be a master in diplomacy very, very quickly if I choose to follow diplomacy again, right?
Right.
And Lord Anticore, even if you don't have a family, again, your soul will retain those characteristics. Within a family, it helps because you've still got the wealth and everything like that the family has to get your new character going, kind of thing.
So you could jump between different families and stuff if you choose to.
If you wanted to, you could jump between different families. You could jump to a different part of the map. You could become, in a different tribe. It really is up to you how you're going to play the game. I mean, it has that much real kind of like flexibility for you, and it's that kind of like is the reincarnation system. You never stop progressing. You never get to that point like that cartoon on the left where it's like, oh fuck, what are we going to do today? It's Wednesday, we're going to run the raid of whatever the case might be, right? And basically what's keeping you in that game is actually your friends and buddies that you're raiding with. It's not the content that you've done 20 times over already and there's nothing new and you know exactly when to spam your macros and everything for maximum damage.
Because a lot of people, it just becomes like second nature after you've done it 5,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. It's like muscle memory. Oh, Noz was
is this
kind
the skill
enough
tree?
That's a little bit of a showing of the skill tree. That's a small part of it.
Okay.
And you can see in there, I'm too far away from the screen. But if you were able to read it, there's combat in there. There's lore. There's barding. There's survival. There's crafting.
Oh, guile. That's what I need right there. Guile. That's the one.
If you look at guile and everything
purse
in
cutting.
there, purse cutting, sleight of hand. There's camouflage, lock picking. I mean, it's all there, And this is kind of like the prototype skill tree. It'll probably get even more, kind of like complex, more branches off of it than this. So, Noz, if we can go to the next one, I think this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to image 5, please, which is the storyline. So, in most games, the storyline is static. It's predetermined. You all freaking ended up washed up on the beach, right? And you lost your memory and all you have on you are your ragged clothes and a dagger. But somewhere you know that there is a great destiny ahead of you. And each and every one of you follows the same fucking storyline. And you all end up being the heroes and saving the world. And yet you all think that you're special when you're not.
I'm pretty sure you can just take over my stream and my viewers won't know the difference. Like I swear to God, I had this exact same rant yesterday. I swear. And every day before that.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's And it's, and every now and then there's, an MMO will take into account, oh, did you create, did you perform a bad deed or a good deed? And it might kind of like, make you kind of like good or bad kind of thing. But other than that, there's pretty much not much variation, right? And especially if you're running an alt or something like that, you cruise through those quests, you're clicking on them and you're done. There's no real storyline once you've done it. You're just leveling up another alt because you want to open up some new classes that weren't on your main character or something like that. And that, it's not challenging,
Oh my God. Just, I'm right there with you. No, I'm 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like on Chronicles of Lyria, and when you roll your character, again, an image that I didn't show there, you're in a place called the Akashic Records, which is where the souls are stored, and you actually get to choose your birth date. And when you choose your birth date and the day and the time, it's almost like think of it almost like an astrological chart, right? What will happen is the Soulbound engine, which is this fairly sophisticated AI. It's a quest generating AI. I'll just digress very, very quickly. There's a guy in Chicago, forgot his name and I forgot the name of the book, but basically he's got a novel that people can subscribe to, and they answer a few questions, and the AI basically writes a story for them. And they listen to it, it's like a podcast once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And it's custom tailored for each individual viewer, and he's got millions of viewers. And though there might be elements obviously that are in common, like some of the characters and this and that, each one basically is a little different. There's a little twist somewhere here or there. And that's what the Soulbound engine is going to be doing. It is going to be giving you, different quests, or you might not get all of the quests that everybody else get, or they come in a different order, or whatever the case might be. But what it does is it tracks your behavior. And yes, there is that thing of moving towards the light or moving towards the dark, and that will kind of like, influence a little bit of the storyline. But it doesn't mean that, that like in a regular game, you go into a dungeon and the demon's going to spawn if you move X amount of pixels past the end of the wall here, kind of thing. This isn't going to happen. It might happen for one person, it might not happen for another. It's just how complex and intricate it is. And again, we could spend ages and ages trying to describe it and deep diving on it, but we'll leave that for another time. They can also, if you look at the image there, the little cartoon on the right hand side, you can be fulfilling a quest sometimes without even knowing that you're fulfilling a quest. And what you do, and I kind of like made it a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing there, but you fulfilling a quest in one area of the map might start a whole different set of quest lines or consequences for somebody else that you've never ever heard of or met somewhere else on the map. And they're kind of like, although the storyline knows they're related, you would never figure out that they were, kind of thing, And it's going to be amazing, I think, in terms of how this stuff kind of like comes on you.
So kind of like a little like a butterfly effect.
Yes, very, very much that kind of like, the butterfly effect that, butterfly flaps its wings, and by the time it goes through all of its stages, it's a hurricane in the Gulf Coast.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. We should definitely chat more about that at some point, because that sounds like something I would want to deep dive into. But I know we're a bit pressed for time for that.
We are, unfortunately. Snipe or the strange wanderer, random wanderer who came in, known as Bet Monty. If I state anything, because I'm trying to whiz through the all the points here and the different aspects of the game and their differences here, Snipe. If you hear me saying anything wrong or got something a little bit off kilter, if you can just correct it in text chat, because I don't actually have time to read the text chat today. We're trying to whistle through this so quickly, But again, yeah, the outcome, Peeve, of your of your quest might change how NPCs act somewhere else in the world, or spawn a fucking migration of animals somewhere, you know?
Oh, because you've messed with the ecosystem.
Yeah, you did something, right? You know, it might say, hey, you need to do this. And again, that goes back to your butterfly effect. You know?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
Alrighty.
pretty damn interesting.
Yep. So Noz, if you can go to the next screen, which should be quests, that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So moving back to quest Pete, something that we'd touched upon earlier. It's like most of us are just tired of what I just call the fucking drudgery of quests and quest hubs. It's like you reached level 20, there are no more quests level in town XYZ, and now a new zone has opened up. So you go to that town and you run around all the stupid NPCs who've got golden little cups above their heads or something like that. You fill up your quest manual. You normally don't even read what the quests are about, or at least for a lot of people, they don't.
Yeah,
They
I
just
was my last stream, I was playing Final Fantasy 14, and I had some I make it a habit to just read all the dialogue, and there's a lot of dialogue. And some of my viewers are like, "Oh, I just skip through everything." I'm like, "You like even on your first playthrough?" They're like, "Yeah, no, I just skip all cutscenes and all dialogue." I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the point? Come over to my house. I can give you some chores to do and give you some levels like for doing those chores. Like same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's they just click, 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 and then they'll open up their quest log, right? Oh, I picked up this quest and that quest and that quest kind of thing, right? And then they get onto Google, and it's for Elder Scrolls Online, I Google the quest of blah 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 blah, and it gives you the rundown of how to finish it and everything,
Yeah.
And it's basically the quest, the storyline and the quests are nothing really more than a leveling mechanic to get you to max level, at which point, because you're at max level, there's nothing much left to do other than the raids that we talked about. So it's almost like a self-destructive loop, right?
Yeah, it's experience that the way I've always said it. I found it ironic that you're gaining experience and it's replacing any actual experience that you might have. So yeah, it's just it's a front to level you up. If you're not following the storyline, if you're interested in the story, great. If not, then like I don't know. What are you doing aside from trying to reach end game? Just drink a skip potion if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and that's how it's happening, isn't it? In some of these games, pay $50 and you start off as an experienced character kind of thing, because a lot of people they skip that content, whereas in CoE, instead of following that exact same series of quests that's given to every other freaking hero in the game, right? That it's a story arc. It's not just that the quests are kind of like individually tailored to you. It's an entire kind of like story arc that, as I said, it takes into account when you were born, not just your behavior, but the behavior of other players around you. And at some point, that story arc might even request that you get involved with other players and other player characters around you. You might even be asked to murder another player in the game as part of your story arc, as an actual quest.
Like a specific player?
Yes.
Oh,
not as a griefing thing or anything, although the other guy did argue that point, but it's because that was to fulfill a certain part of your destiny, right? And excuse me, you can get as involved in the storyline as much or as little as you want, kind of thing. If you don't want to get involved in the storyline and you just want to be the best smith and you want to make amazing armor and weapon and go out with a two-handed maul and lay waste to your enemies, you can do that. You do not have to follow the quests to gain your skills, or to open up new skills. Some of the quest givers might kind of like open up a new fighting style or something like that. But generally speaking, again, it's in your hands. This is I can't emphasize enough how excited I am over the fact that we get to choose. You know,
Yeah.
once we choose the role we play, okay, so you have certain restrictions. Like if I'm going to be playing a monarch, I have certain restrictions in as much that I need to, run the kingdom kind of thing, right? But I became a monarch by choice, not it was forced upon me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I got you. The one thing that does concern me a bit is the procedural. If they're procedurally generated, I feel like after a certain point, you might just start seeing like repeats and stuff. So I would be a bit worried about that. But
You might, to a certain extent. I mean, I think if you're like, let's say that you're an apprentice smith, right?
right,
I mean, you're definitely going to see like a repeat of, oh, go out and get me 50 iron ore, because there's, the local smith isn't going to say, or typically he's not going to say, go out and slay a demon. He's going to be giving you quests
fair
that are
enough.
related to his profession, and we'll get into a little bit later. We'll get into the AI of the NPCs and everything like that. Noz, if we can go to the next panel, please, which is skill advancement. And this kind of like, again, these are all somewhat related and they piggyback on each other. But with skill advancement, what you're looking at is again, it's kind of like in most games, it's kind of like it's a race, right? Again, you can Google and look at how the best way of power leveling from level 1 to 50 in 2 hours, as you can see in that. And typically what will happen is at least what I used to do is, okay, I would make my main toon and he'd be my deviant, kind of like, my thief, pickpocket, lock picker, whatever the case might be. And then I'd make like a healer or a ranger. And then because I needed to have gear, I'd make a tailor and a smith and a tinker and a cook and everything else, because you can level them up really, really quickly,
Right.
and so I would end up having like, as many alts basically as slots would allow me to have on the account, and I'd be very, very self-sufficient. And although I play with a group, I didn't have to rely upon that group for anything. I was self-contained. If I needed food, if I needed a new set of leather armor or a scale helm, boom, I would just tune over to that guy, crank it out, put it into the community chest and log the other guy back in and be done with it, kind of thing. And you're not going to have that again in Chronicles of Illyria. I touched on it earlier, but I want to make it clear that only 1% of players will ever be legendary in any given skill that they choose to follow at any particular point in time. So if you've got 100 Smiths playing the game, probably maybe one or two of them might actually be legendary. And there's no kind of like cap on it. I'm not exactly sure as to the mechanics as to how they're going to do that. If they do a review once a month or every 3 months, and kind of like, you have to stay active to maintain that legendary Smith status, or else somebody else who was let's say a Grandmaster Smith below you might leapfrog past you and he might become the legendary smith now. And also understand that legendary items will give you a benefit, but they're not going to give you OP benefits. It's not like all of a sudden every other smith is making a regular sword and a legendary smith makes one of plus 200 smiting that if somebody else even looks at it, they die. It might give you something like a little bit more durability, right? So that it doesn't need to be repaired as often or something
So
like
it's
that.
more of like a almost like more of like a status kind of a thing.
It's status, it's quality. You might be able to put on some better embellishments, which might make it. I'm fairly sure that they're not looking at kind of like having +3 strength, +4 agility or whatever, as stats on any of their items. That even goes for jewelry and everything like that. But there are embellishments that you can add and things like that will give you, maybe you can add a double blade on. We'll get into this during the crafting thing, but it'll give you benefits definitely during crafting. It'll probably open up more options for you and more techniques and skills when you're crafting. So the skill in CoE it's an active process basically, where the skills you're developing are directly related to the skills you're practicing. So if I've got a sword and I'm beating on a mannequin in a training field, I'm increasing swordsmanship. I might be increasing my base melee skill at the same time, but that's all I'm increasing. Whereas in some games, well, if you're increasing your swords, you're also increasing two-handed swords, you're increasing spears and shields and everything like that. Not so in CoE. You would have to basically, level each one individually, although the more skill you have in a sword, for example, the greater your base melee skill is, which means you might learn spears quicker, but you started off in spears basically at 0 kind of thing, if I'm making sense.
Right. No, yeah, I got you. Yeah.
They're kind of like they're related to the root skill, but they don't kind of like cross train, I guess is what I.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. So how many pockets would I have to pick and purses would I have to cut to become legendary thief?
2 to 3 years worth probably, and I don't know what number that will be, and I know that's going to be a goal of yours, but basically what happens is you learn in a different way as well. In most games, again, you kind of like you just practice, right? And it's grind. Whereas in Chronicles of Lyria, you're going to start off probably by, as an apprentice, and you're going to observe what people are doing, how they're practicing the actual skill that you want to learn, and you become an apprentice, and then you start to actually pick up the rudimentary techniques and everything from the person you're learning from, and then you're going to buy recipes and try them out. And for combat, we'll get into that later, but in combat that's going to mean that you're buying kind of like skill books, codexes. Then when you kind of like get to journeyman level, you're probably going to find a mentor who knows more advanced techniques and skills, and you're going to learn from him. And then kind of like when you're getting to the top part, you're going to need to learn from a school or a university or a guild, because nobody else kind of like possesses that kind of skill for it.
That would be, if they can pull that off, that'd be a really amazing way of doing it. You said once you're an apprentice, just like, did you say that just watching them would help you learn it?
When you first start off, yes, watching will help you learn it.
So
and Snipe actually chimed in here, D, on this point. As you get better at smithing, you do become capable of learning different techniques. And the chat is moving so fast. You do become capable of learning different techniques if you can find them in the world and learn them, so you can actually do different things while crafting. And each of those techniques also change the thing you're producing in some way. And the chat keeps moving, so it was a whole paragraph. So scroll up.
Also, I won't be able to scroll up on that. Hopefully, the viewers got to see it. But
I can
just understand it's very dynamic. Yeah, it's very, very dynamic on there.
Snipe is one of the devs, right?
That is correct.
And is that Bet Monty in the chat?
It is indeed. Okay. Though you'll never get him to admit it. It's quite all right.
Yeah, I saw you like answering like some stuff like very detailed. I was like, that's got to be somebody involved.
Yep. Yeah, it's their time is very, very precious to them, because it's a small indie team, and in fact we didn't expect any of them to show up, so we're grateful that they that at least Sniper's shown up and is helping handle the deluge of questions happening in our chat in here. So that's great. Okay, so moving on.
If Bet Monty corrects anything, you guys
can
better
take that as gospel.
That. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you can take that as gospel. Noz, if we can move over to the next scene, please, which should be leveling via skill versus leveling with equipment. And again, you can see the image on the left hand side there. Your typical MMO. So many games have where leveling up can be basically circumvented by twinking your tune out with amazing gear, whether that's from a guildmate or one of your own alts. You can kind of like have a level 10 tune go on and take, you know, level 10 or 20 mobs and get amazing XP because he's got the, you know, the gloves of +5 acid resistance and the this and the that. And again, you kind of I wouldn't say you're cheating the game, because that's not what it is, but it's what it is to me is it's a testimony that the interactions that you're having with the game, or at least for a lot of the people, aren't interesting enough for them to want to kind of like take the journey through them, right? They're just trying to
Right.
speed through them to get to the end part kind of thing.
And that feels like that's the case for so many these days, because it's not that it's interesting, it's that you just want to get to the end as quick as possible, and that just seems like kind of an overall flaw with most MMOs, to me at least. I don't know, some people really like that.
Oh no, I mean I 100% agree, because it's like it's hurry up and wait, right? Because they get to 50 and then they start bitching that the new content isn't going to be out for another 8 months. What are we going to do? You know? And
Yeah.
it's kind of it's a closed loop that isn't actually a very, very healthy one, you know? But with the lack of other alternatives out there and other experiences out there, you know, people kind of like get trapped in that loop. And again, Chronicles of Illyria is an escape from that. It's a different way of playing and gaming and interacting and adventuring in the environment that you're going. So in Chronicles of Illyria, you know, the equipment that you're wearing is often it's less a function of quality, as the devs have stated, but more often a function of their circumstances, where you need the right equipment. And we'll go into inventory again, you know, a little later on in the stream, but it's more the equipment that you need to wear for kind of like survival and everything like that. You know, battlefield combat is different from fencing. So you would be wearing, you know, different undergarments and different armor for that. And that's different from the combat you'll experience if you're facing a highway robber. And that's, you know, you're not going to find smiths. You know, a lot of my smiths in other games can smith wearing full plate armor, right? Because there's no penalty for it.
Yeah, there's it's not restricting you technically in any way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
That's a good
totally
point. I never thought
stupid
about
and
that.
silly. Yeah,
I
it's crazy.
never considered that. Yeah.
And in this one, it's going to be so different. And Noz, if we can move over to screen 10, please. Let's see how we're doing on time. Holy crap. We are halfway through the time, and we're a little bit under over a third of the way through. So we're not too terribly behind. So combat. This is one that a lot of people obviously are very, very interested in, and I will try and go over this. We don't have too many details, but I'll try and let you know what I know and I gather so far. And please watch the text chat, because this is something that actually Betmonte has worked on himself. It's something that's near and dear and close to his heart, and he will for sure correct me if I'm wrong and add things if I've omitted anything out. So again, in your typical MMO, and I'm not talking about the smaller ones where you kind of like, you know, got 64-man servers and everything, but in your typical large MMO, like, you know, World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars, etc., you kind of like, you run around either as an individual or a group. You tab target your target, and then basically you hit a key and spam either macros or combos. And again, you Google online as to, oh yeah, you know, if I use this combo with that combo and that, and the cooldown on this one is that, and I rotate it in it here, the guy's dead in 5 seconds. And there's no skill. There is no skill except for perhaps in having to know how to write a combo, but that has nothing to do with, what your in-game skills should be, right?
Right.
Whereas in CoE, the how to put this, the skill and the action are based and probably best summed up by kind of like, I think in fact I think this was Snipe that said this. In combat, the game is meant to be highly tactical. Fights typically won't end quickly unless your opponent is significantly ignorant. For example, he knows only the basic stance that everyone knows, or is underskilled in a player skill sense, right? He doesn't click the mouse properly, or whatever the case might be. Because you and your opponent will be analyzing the situation, you'll be positioning yourselves and actively managing your defenses and attacks in the hopes of creating an opening to strike. A fight between two masters might see them change stances a score of times in a duel as the circumstances change. It's on you to deliver those attacks correctly, though. The system has more in common with a fighting game than it does with the traditional MMO's hotbar combat. It's not about knowing your rotation, and throwing an attack isn't a guarantee it will land, or if it lands, if it will even have an effect. Those are instead elements of the player skill aspect of the game. Aiming your attacks, knowing when to throw them, knowing how to defend against incoming attacks, and recognizing those incoming attacks is all upon you, the player. So I don't know if you have any comments on that there, Pat.
I mean, that sounds like the kind of combat that I'm interested in. I've never really gotten into MMO PvP because it mostly is just from an outsider perspective, is it's about, like you said, like just macro combinations, like hitting your spells and your skills and stuff at the right time. It's more like button pressing than it is actual like interactive combat.
Exactly.
It's more about like stats fighting with each other than players fighting with each other.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's, and you'll have kind of like, the Zergs, right, that run around and they spam the AoEs and everything like that. And you're not really going to see that here. There will be large pitch battles, but it'll mainly be, kind of like ranged, bows, and it'll be kind of like more like, traditional medieval type battles.
Right.
Let's move on. I want to keep the pace going here. Noz, if we can go to the next screen, which is about movement. And when we're looking at movement in your typical MMO, you can you can run, you can walk, you can jump, and some of them have kind of like a climbing mechanic. But that, generally speaking, sums up probably the vast majority of MMOs out there. Whereas in Chronicles of Illyria, I don't know if any of you had seen some of the trailers that we were showing earlier and everything like that. You can walk, you can run, obviously, you can sprint, and there will actually, when you start to sprint and when you slow down, there's actually these little, it's not like you stop sprinting and boom, you come to a stop on that exact pixel when you lifted your key up. There's I don't know what it'll be, 3, 4, 5 paces as he slows down from his sprint to come to a stop, right?
Right.
You're going to be able to roll. You're going to be able to jump. You're going to be able to climb. You're going to be able to vault. You're going to be able to hang. Some of the zip line videos that I've seen have just been, holy crap, that would be great. The devs were having a run through an area they showed, I think it was about a year, 2 years ago.
PAX East.
Yes, and one of them fell off
I saw
too
that.
soon and died,
Yeah, it was just to paint the picture for my chat. It was, or for my viewers. It's I've linked it in my own stream before. It's this video of them running through a like a cavernous kind of area, like a mine shaft or something.
It's the Silver Run mines, yes.
Yeah, and it's essentially like parkour all the way through. And for an MMO, it's crazy that they would have movement like that,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty in depth.
Okay. I was just reading Snipe's comment. He's got a fighting style here on paper in his notebook with a one-liner description that says, "When you learn to fight in the taverns of every port, you fight like this." So I think he's dropped a hint that there is a fighting style, probably brawling, or something like that, pub brawling. That if you visit a number of ports, you might find trainers there.
Just go get drunk and beat the hell out of people, and you'll become something.
That's right. And again,
Hey,
see how well that emulates
works.
real life. You know?
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
like, oh, are you a knight or a warrior class? It's like, no, I get drunk and I beat the hell out of people. It's like, oh, okay.
That's Noz, I think, putting that up on the screen. Okay, yeah, he's got an image going there.
Is this?
Okay, so
oh
Noz,
yeah, this is the video. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the video there of the Silver Run mine. So actually, what we'll do, let's just take a little moment to watch this. And even those jars, those clay jars you see down on the ground there, he would be able to interact with them, which in most other games would be. And again, we'll get to this later on in the thing. They would just be there just for kind of like for color, right?
Yeah.
Just because they look good, kind of.
And if I can make one more note, if this is a video from the same time period as I'm thinking it is, if they get into combat in this, it's not representative like the full combat system or anything. It's just it's more about the movement and stuff. Because I know at one point they got into combat and it was like super simplistic, but that wasn't. I think they said that this is like the combat's in the game, but it's not fleshed out yet.
It was like the default combat that comes in Unreal 4 and
this isn't the video I saw. This is definitely a different one.
And this particular video I took straight from the Chronicles of Illyria YouTube page. So it's public. It's out there. They have a lot of good content on there that you can scroll through. It starts off kind of slow, and this is a 17-minute video. So
we're going to watch the whole thing, right?
Yeah, we're not going to be able to watch the whole thing. Maybe what we'll do is post a link to it. But you can start to see some of the parkour here again. I think what it is... Again, I don't know if it's for the purposes of this demo, but the areas that he can jump to and interact with. It's funny because I say, he can only freaking crawl around on the pigeon shit ledges, but they're all kind of like painted in white kind of thing to show where he can go. And you can see as he's looking there at the waterfall.
Oh, look at the big skull on the cliffside.
It is a big skull upside down. These again, it's all going to be part of the old lore, I think, and everything involved in that.
Yeah, the one I watched like this, there was I think that was the whole thing with the PAX East event. They had people who showed up at their booth try to run as fast as they could through the mines.
Yes,
and people would just like fall off the ledges and stuff. So yeah, you could you can get some speed going. This video seems to be more for taking in the visuals as well.
Yeah, exactly. They made it clear that if he'd have made that jump and not caught something, he'd be dead. They just they hadn't activated death. Let's move on from that, Noz, because we don't unfortunately have the 17 minutes to watch. But people, you see how he leapt up there. It gives you a good idea. Oh, no, yeah, this is combat, not the zipline. All right, yeah. Let's move on to 10, 11. Let's move on to screen 12, please. All righty. So you're also going to be able to, in most games that you play, the other characters in there have either got a tag above their head, or if you click on them, it'll tell you who they are. And with rare exception, there's an odd game here or there that kind of like has a disguise kit kind of thing. In Chronicles of Illyria, there won't be tags above anybody else's heads, either NPCs or players, until you've actually interacted with them and gotten to know them and gotten to know the identity that they're in. And let me make that very clear, and I'll repeat. until they've gotten to know the identity that they're in. Because people can use disguise kits, they can forge papers and everything like that, and they can introduce themselves as David when in reality his character was rolled as John, right? And
Right.
so when other people see him as David, they'll know him as David, but other people that know him as John will see him as John. And that can kind of like lead to some, potentially difficult situations. Even if you have a very high, kind of like, let's call it a guile and disguise skill, your immediate family members will probably recognize you. And it doesn't matter what disguise you're in, it will have your name of John above your head, even if you're pretending to be David, kind of thing. But it's going to allow again for some interesting, espionage and spying
Oh yeah.
and intrigue and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, in Ultima Online, I have on the I think I mentioned this to you before. On the top floor of my house, I have just a bunch of mannequins with a bunch of different disguises that I've built, and I've tied each disguise to a specific name that I got from the disguise kit. And if I happen to roll that name again, then I go and I equip that armor, and it got to the point where I right before I stopped playing, this was the last time I played, because I've gone back to Ultima Online on and off and stuff, and sometimes viewers will join me. But the last time I was starting to send out viewers who would use disguise kits, and they would roll a name. Say they'd roll the name, I don't know, Kevin. hopefully something a bit less obvious as like an NPC name than that. But say they rolled the disguise kit name Kevin. Kevin is then tied to a specific armor set, and the last player that played as quote unquote Kevin marked down in a book the people they spoke to, the conversations they had, the guild that they were talking to, and stuff like that. So whenever I would have a viewer roll that disguise name, I'd give them all that gear. They'd put on that gear, and they would go try and pick up these conversations that someone else had, not even them, as Kevin, and take on the role as Kevin. So just the fact that that kind of ridiculous crap was possible in Ultima Online, if you thought outside the box, like just the tools that were there allowed for that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I'm excited for with this.
So think about this now. You got a 10-year storyline, right? In Chronicles of Illyria.
Right.
What if you were to create an identity and a persona that existed over multiple lifetimes?
Oh, like even after well, I guess it wouldn't matter if a character passes away, because if it's a disguise, then it could essentially be in a sense like a persona that's immortal, because it's
because you've got the gear, you've got the clothes, you've got the fake ID papers and everything like that, right?
so
think of it almost like Batman
taking up the mantle. Yeah, that's holy crap. Okay,
Yeah?
I like that. Yeah.
So you could create this persona, this identity of this like amazing freaking guild leader of a guild of thieves, right? And that persona, like it could be, it's like in James Bond, right? You've always got M. They're always called M, right? Or even 007. That name 007 is always there, the persona, but you have different actors play it, right?
Right.
And this would be like, you could create, I don't know, whatever freaking name you want for your thief persona, and the masked one or whatever.
Like someone mentioned in the chat, Gray Fox from Oblivion.
Yes, exactly.
They always had a new like gray fox that would take on the stupid mask he had. It looks so dumb. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, that's nuts. Yeah.
So you could be the Gray Fox for 10 real life gaming years.
That's an idea. Yeah. I like that idea. Yeah.
just thoughts out there.
I like that thought. Yeah.
Yep. Shoot. Okay, we're about halfway through, and we've already used up 2/3 of the time. Well,
Perfect.
we'll see. We'll keep moving, and if it runs over 90 minutes and people are still interested in listening to me ramble on and Peeve give his questions and comments, we'll keep going, kind of thing. As long as Noz doesn't fall asleep. Noz, if we can move on to the next screen here, please.
Already got
He already has, which are offline player characters. Again, typically in most games, when you log out of the game, you switch your computer off, or you just exit the program and everything, your character logs out. And he vanishes. In some games, it's got where it might take 2 minutes so that, you're not combat logging or something like that. Or he collapses into sleep mode. And if you don't log back in for 3 weeks, guess what? That poor little fucker's been sleeping there for 3 weeks, not doing anything. Whereas in Chronicles of Illyria, when you log out, your character's going to stay in the world. He'll be permanent in the world. Your avatar is always present there with the soul in there, but you're going to be able to program your OPC's actions through either pre-made or custom-tailored scripts.
Wait. So you're essentially your character will essentially turn into like a temporary NPC.
He will turn into a temporary NPC if you want him to. For example, there are, to my understanding, going to be kind of like there's going to be 3 ways or 3 levels of scripting. Okay, there's kind of like going to be like a default level where it's almost going to be like a graphical UI window is going to crop up, and you're going to be able to drag and drop actions, and based upon the order that you dragged and dropped them into the kind of like your script line, they will then follow in that order. And some of them can be act like a merchant, act like a quest giver, act like a trainer, etc. And so your guy will, for all intents and purposes, he'll be an NPC, And now, again, people who know you will know that's you because your name is above them. But you might say, in my script,
I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
When people ask who I am, say I'm Bob the Merchant, for example, and they won't recognize him, any different from John the Merchant next to him. One might be selling apples, one might be selling pears, but you're going to stay in the game. Now, where this is going to come in handy is, and there's just, God, the game is so complex. And every time I talk about something, it starts talking about something else we're going to talk about a little later down the road. But let's look at it as when it comes to crafting. We'll get this bit out of the way right now. So crafting in the game, and we'll get into it in depth later, but just as a quick overview, it's a very complex system of techniques and everything like that you have to be present and you have to be active to do. But if you are needing, let's say iron ore because you're a smith, or you're going to need iron ingots, you can actually have your guy, while you're offline, he can be you might be able to program him to buy iron ore from a merchant that comes into town if he sees one, right? And then bring that back, and he will automatically smelt that, so that when you log into the game, because
it's a lot of people actually did something.
It's you did something, but people have said, oh my God, this game is so time consuming. How am I ever going to have time to play it? Think about it this way. In a way, it's the other way around, because that guy has already prepared the iron ingots for you that might have taken you an hour or 2 of actual gameplay in another game to make.
So your character is already even while you're not there, he's living on his life. And then whenever you jump into the game, you're just kind of taking control. Granted, while he's living his life on his own, it's probably not nearly as exciting as whatever the hell you might do. But it's better than, like you said, sleeping for a month on end.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not gonna gain levels. You're not gonna gain skills or anything like that while you're offline. To prevent that from being metagamed and abused. But you can at least get the chores done for when you get back online and you're and you want to start skilling up in a craft or something like that again.
Yeah, that's great. But that pale guy asked, or I think what they're getting at, can they be attacked? Like, will they have to defend themselves somehow?
They can be attacked. They'll be able to defend themselves. Normally, you would typically, and you might log out while you're in the wilderness, right? And then you kind of like, there will be kind of like defensive scripts for anybody who might have played Screeps. You know that you can with JavaScript. If this happens, then do this, right? It's a kind of like cause and effect, kind of like code writing thing, and you'll be able to do that. And there will be people who will actually, the more skilled kind of like programmers and writers, they'll probably be able to write some very, very amazing custom scripts that they'll probably sell either in game or out of game. It'll probably become a business in and of itself, just so that you're not standing there basically, like a little concrete statue.
And just for clarity, Snipe did say that every character will quote unquote sim the way an NPC does by default. So they'll run if they think they can't win, they'll fight if they feel they have to, eat food if they need it, etc.
Okay. I did have one question that Snipe may be able to answer. Because I know my viewers are going to ask. If not now, then later if we discuss it. What happens if, say, another player kills your simmed character, I guess, while you're not online? Is that gonna negatively impact your character's lifespan? Because like, what would keep them from just mass killing your character over and over and over and over while you're not there?
While Snipe's typing that, I'll try and answer the best of my ability.
Okay.
Basically, you will go into kind of like the spirit world. When you die, you go into the spirit world, and based upon the amount of energy you'll have left in your soul spark, you kind of like walk in this kind of like alternate plane back to your body. But if you die and you're offline, the game recognizes that, and when you log back in, you'll be logging back in the spirit world. Okay. So you won't be griefed over and over and over again and losing your spark or anything like that.
So worst case scenario, you log back in and you're dead, but you just run back to your body essentially. Yes. It will, but your character won't just get back up, let it happen again. If you die while you're offline, you won't reincorporate until you come back and reconnect your spirit form with your body. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. And typically, again, if you're in town, right, there are going to be
no one's going to really be murdering you. Yeah.
Nobody's going to be murdering you in the open because, and again, we'll get into that. There's the whole crime and the bounty system and everything like that. So most deviant stuff is usually done outside of other people's vision and stuff, So if you log out in the marketplace, now you're not going to stand in that marketplace. They're going to do, and so if we can move on to NPCs, the next screen, please, no. Because as Snipe had said, you're basically going to take on the characteristics of an NPC, right? And in most games, and again, here we come back to this, NPCs are fucking stupid, They will stand there for 7 years on the same street corner with that same little gold goblet above their head, right? And they literally do fuck all other than give you a quest, and even if it's possible to kill one, they'll respawn the exact same guy, look exactly the same, etc. And literally, that couldn't be further away from NPCs in Chronicles of Illyria. In Chronicles of Illyria, they will have a sophisticated AI system on them. They will, just like player characters, they're going to age, they're going to learn, they're going to die, just like player characters. And they're going to follow something referred to as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically what Maslow's hierarchy of needs does is it's a theory saying that as human beings, or in fact, most creatures will follow the fact that, they need to breathe, they need to eat, they need to sleep, they need to find shelter, then they need to find reproduce, employment, and then they can look towards things like politics or religion or whatever the case might be. And the NPCs will actually follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so how they perform will be based upon, you might see an NPC and he might well be a quest giver, although you wouldn't know it unless you talk to him. And you might want to talk to him, but he basically might do the CoE version of saying, hey, fuck off, I'm hungry, I'm going home to eat, kind of thing. And he's not going to stay and stand and talk to you, right? Because the way he's programmed, his needs of eating are greater than him chatting with you. Oh, they also they have a gossip system as well, with some of the tribes more kind of like predicated to spreading more gossip than other of the tribes, which will have its own kind of like, nice little political systems in there and everything with that as well. But then they also have, on top of having Maslow's needs, they're also going to have their own individual personalities, which are developed by individual sliding scales of the big 5 personality traits. So you might have one NPC's more neurotic than another. That other one might be more conscientious, or other ones might be more agreeable, etc., etc. And they also have memories, and they'll react to you accordingly. Either in a favorable or an unfavorable way. And so they're going to be so dynamic. They have their own lives that they go about that will kind of like complement what's going on in that settlement, if I'm making sense. They'll have professions, but by having a profession, it's because that town, needed and wants that profession. They fill needs within the community.
Yeah, I've always thought that the key to like a good immersive MMO is it boils down at its core to like much smarter NPCs, because like you said, most NPCs are they're just set pieces. They will just sit there for eternity and not eat or sleep or do anything. So it does sound cool that they're trying to get the NPCs to actually have their own lives and agendas and stuff. But what would worry me is like I don't know how they would do like the dialogue system to make them unique. Obviously you're going to have some that are going to repeat dialogue of another and stuff.
Sure.
But I'm just I don't know how much they would be able to pack into that. If they can figure that out though, then then we're on track there.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a step in the right direction. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
notice if we can move to the next screen where we're actually talking about the creatures now. And the creatures in other games are the same, right? They're stupid and they're static. They're leashed to a particular point rather than a zone or a biome, and they'll respawn upon being killed. Whereas the creatures in Chronicles of Lyria, they follow a simpler set of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, again, they'll be born, they grow, they age, they die all the time while trying to kind of like survive, find food, build dens, reproduce, etc. And, they'll, again, have their own, almost like mini personalities, especially, some of the more aggressive ones might actually stalk you without you even knowing that you're being stalked, I want all of this to become true. I want all of this to become a reality. At the same time, there are parts of me that are kind of like a skeptic. I remember I was very much involved with the pre-launch community of Elder Scrolls Online. And I remember seeing what I thought was a brilliant interview with Paul Sage, one of the lead devs. I think he'd done Dark Age of Camelot was his biggest claim to fame before that. But he was like going on about, and our creatures are going to have such amazing AI, and and if it's a pack animal like a wolf, they're going to hunt like pack animals, and they're going to circle around you and come at you from behind and do. And it was like, holy shit, this is amazing! This is amazing! This is the next best great game out there, right? And the game came out. I kid you not, the wolves and everything else were just the same like the wolves and everything else in every other game.
Yeah, I got hyped for ESO as well, and equally fell flat as well.
Yeah, we seem to have traveled similar lines. I actually Zenimax flew me out to Bethesda actually.
Really?
Yeah, they flew 19 of us out from Europe and the United States for a conference. You know, when it was tanking and the player base was hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, they flew us out for kind of like this little bit of a conference, because some of the stuff, I swear, we'd been telling them for a year, hey, if you carry on doing this, the player base is going to go away. You know, you can't. Oh no, we're fine. We're the devs. We've done Dark Age of Camelot. We know how to do it. And it's like, okay, you know, you're the professionals. We're the consumers, right? And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
you know, you have to have that certain bit of trust. But lo and behold, exactly what we said happened, right? And now all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, we're the devs. Think of it as, you know, there's there's a mechanic, right? And there's the person who owns the car. And although the mechanic knows how to build the car and how to keep it in tune, you don't have to be a mechanic driving it to know if there's something going wrong, you know, and what it might take to fix it when you take it into the mechanic. And that's kind of like how we looked at that. And it's, you know,
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that, you know, Elder Scrolls is having a little bit of a comeback, but, you know, not enough of one for me to kind of like, you know, get back into, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Kitney asked, so you still can be grieved by being killed offline that can lead to loss of souls? Do you have a response to that?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it would impact your soul, I would imagine.
theoretically, you could be killed if you're AFK, yes. But, you know, that's partly incumbent on you to hide yourself properly if you're out in the wilderness, or bolt yourself inside your house if you're that paranoid, if you're in town.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you program what you want your character to do while you're offline, you can just have them stay in the house, never go outside.
Yeah,
because the
exactly.
character and you, in a sense, are extremely paranoid about it. So, which is that. I mean, that's not a bad thing. That could just be, you know, that could transfer from you to your character and more immersive.
Yep.
I think you'll see that more with royalty, because you're not going to see dukes or duchesses or kings or queens randomly roaming the village while they're offline. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Whether you're not gonna go chop some wood like outside your kingdom.
no. I think what it has, they kind of like, they have a fame system, and so like I think your average player, I think, can experience 100 deaths, not coup de grace. Oh yeah, that would be coup de grace. You can be knocked out. Let's say that you're a thief and you want to grab somebody's, you know, they were holding something in their hand and you really liked it. You can knock them out, and basically they're knocked out on the ground for, I think it's like 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And that isn't spirit loss at all. But the average player would have to be coup de grace 100 times in their life before they, you know, need a new soul spark. And the more fame you have, like if you're an adventurer or you're a count or you're a duke, you know, the quicker you earn fame, but also the quicker you lose life. So, you know, I've got the Monarch package, and, you know, my understanding is if I get coup de grace like 4 or 5 times, boom, that's it. You know, that's my life gone.
But you're at the highest tier, because you'd be, you know, you're a king, so
I'm at the highest tier. I've probably got the most bodyguards and the most protection, right, and everything like that. But things that I do for our community, I'm gaining fame, you know, either for myself and reputation for the community and everything, also at 25 times the rate, right? So it's that, you know, it's a very nice balanced risk versus reward system on that.
Okay. And something I know people are going to wonder, how's that work with like enemies, like NPC enemies, monsters, stuff like that? Like if say you go out and you fight, like, I don't know, a troll or whatever, it kills you. Is it gonna coup de grace you, or is it like, is that gonna affect your?
I don't know.
You're not sure about that? Okay.
I don't know if it's going to coup de grace you. It might depend upon how much you pissed it off, right?
Fair enough. Because I know there's going to be some people who want to go out and they want to adventure, they want to fight monsters, and they'll be worried that 100 deaths to them sounds like it's going to happen in a week, you know?
Yeah, well, it might. I mean, but I'd asked you earlier what drew you into the game. I'll tell you what drew me into it, because it's actually directly related to this. This is back, I think it was in April or May of 2016. I joined the IRC that Caspian, the owner and of the studio, and this is his vision and everything like that. I was watching the chat because I was new, nobody knew me, I didn't know anybody else, and somebody was saying, "Oh wow, are they going to be demons?" And Caspian said, "Well, there might be demons, they might be in caves." And so he was asked, "Well, what if I run into the cave? Can I go ahead and just kill the demon?" And Caspian said, "Well, no, he'll probably be part of the storyline, and he's not respawning, and as such, he'll probably be a very, very strong character." And so, if you just run straight in, you're an adventurer and you want to go exploring and everything like that, and you run into a cave and you run into that demon, he's probably going to kill you outright. And, the guy's like, "Well, wow, that's a little bit weird and strange. Isn't that a bit OP?" And this is what hooked me into the game. Caspian's reply was,
I can already imagine. Yeah, continue.
"Don't you think it's a little bit stupid running into a cave you've never explored before just by yourself without checking to see what's in front of you?" Yeah. And I said, "You know what? This is a guy who knows what we, or at least what some of us as gamers are looking for. We want that challenge. We want that kind of like that almost that little feeling of, oh fuck, what's around the corner kind of thing, This is what is going to keep us as engaged in the game more so than, oh shit, I can go out and run and kill 10 trolls in the troll spawn area and I can get quarter of a level quickly. It's this, this is a game that's kind of like, the take on it that I'm looking at is amazing on it.
So you're telling me that natural selection is a feature?
Yes. The solo guy running to the demon wins the Darwin Award.
I mean, whenever you look at it like that, it's like, what are you gonna do? But I mean, a lot of players are gonna attempt that stuff because every other game has taught them that they're the greatest, they're the hero. So if they want to be the hero, I guess.
That's right. I've got my Demon Slayer sword, right? So yeah.
Oh my god. Natural selection is a game mechanic. I never considered it. Wow.
Definitely.
Okay.
So let's move on to the world, the size of the world here. And Noz, if you can put up that panel, I think that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, panel number 6. All right. So in a typical MMO, and they're done nicely, it's, I started playing, games, back in the freaking 80s, when they were I was playing games when there weren't visual graphic ones, right? It was text only. You find yourself in a room, there is a candle on the table, there is a door to the east and one to the west, and you better know what the keywords were or else you'd be stuck in that room forever, right? But, most games, they're now really nicely drawn, they're really nicely created, but they're hand-drawn, and they're relatively small worlds and maps. They're made even faster because most people, it's kind of like, instant gratification. I don't want to have to, travel through newbie zone for players level 5 and 10 and then newbie zone 20 if I'm trying to get to 40. So, you have your shrines or your portals or your rune stones or whatever. And you kind of like, you transition through those areas. They're kind of like hard transition areas. And, it's CoE is different on that. The map itself, and oh my god, Snipes here, let's not get him started, but we could literally spend probably 6 hours just talking about map generation, procedural generation, and everything like that. For the purposes of this discussion, for people again new to CoE and learning about it, the maps, there are 4 servers: EU, NA East, NA West, and the Oceanic server. And the community, not the devs, the community got to kind of like vote on different test maps that were put up. And the one that we're on is the one that you can see there. That's what's colloquially known as Map N. That's the NA East server map. Each one of those white or black little dotted lines, those represent 10 kilometers. And so what you're looking at that, if you look at the left-hand side of the page, there's a little small white rectangle underneath the red text. That's the size of the map of Skyrim. For those of you that played Skyrim, you know that was a pretty decent sized map. Cyrodiil, for those of you that played Elder Scrolls Online, Cyrodiil is half the size of that little white square. And then if you translate it, because it's in scale to the map that is on the right-hand side, you'll see that, you know, what you're looking at, I've estimated that we've got about 9,500 square kilometers in the map for the NA East server. And to put that in perspective, the Skyrim map, the playable area of the Skyrim map was around about 30 kilometers, which means that the map that we've got already for the server for NA East is 3,156 times larger than the Skyrim map. And there's no fast travel.
That's my viewers know how against fast travel I am. I will do playthroughs with no fast travel if the world is engaging enough.
Yep.
So the fact that there would be no fast travel and you have to, because the traveling, that's part of the experience, you know.
It definitely will be in this game, you know.
And even if players don't like it, getting used to it as like part of, you know, your routine, that's I think they would come to accept it because they would encounter things along the roads and stuff. It's part of the experience. It's not necessarily downtime. It's, you don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, and then on top of that, like you don't necessarily have to go anywhere if you don't want. You could just stay like in the same city and or general area, for as long as you want.
And then again, what we have is, instead of the map being divided up into kind of like zones for, you know, players level 10 to 20, level 30.
Lost your audio there, D. Peeve, are you still there?
Did Peeve?
We got you back. We had to change the Discord server.
Okay, y'all can hear me now, though.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, cool. Okay, excellent. I was ignorant while I was rambling. I wasn't even aware that had happened. See, alrighty.
Okay.
So yeah, and you know, you need to have these kind of things because there's going to be different resources, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But there's different resources spread throughout that. Things that you find up north, you might not find down south, etc. And there is no global auction house. You know, this is a player run and a player driven economy. You know, there's going to be dynamic weather in the game. There are going to be seasons that vary in length, and in fact, you might have, you know, seasons, you know, nice, plenty, bountiful kind of like summer seasons that lead to abundance of crops and other harvestable resources, and you know, you're going to want to save those because every 52 Illyrian years, and one real life week is one Illyrian year. every 52 Illyrian years, so once every real life year, there's a celestial event that occurs called the Longest Night. And it's like this extended period of darkness where, it's like a dark season, for want of a better word, and there is no food, and you're going to be experiencing famine and kind of like, the darker creatures. It's rumored, it hasn't been confirmed. It's rumored that there might be things like vampires and things like that become a little bit more bold in during that period of time. So we'll see. But these are all exciting things to look at and to look forward to and discover.
And then you get bit by a vampire and become a vampire, right?
That is what they are saying. Yeah, absolutely. And then that's a whole separate thing again, which we won't get into right now. In fact, Noz, move us on, please, to the next screen.
Yeah, we're at 90 minutes and we got 10 more slides to go. So
yeah, I know. That's why I'm trying to run through these. We still seem to be maintaining the player base, so it looks like people are still interested and everything like that. So, but I'll try and speed it up a little bit for you.
Okay, no problem.
Settlements and housing. In a typical MMO, you've got static towns, right? They're generated with the map by the devs. Player housing is often instance, and you got limited building access. And what I mean by that is if you go into a town, even in Skyrim, half the fucking buildings you can't even enter, right? They're just placeholders there just to make it look pretty. They're not actual functional buildings. Whereas the buildings and the settlements in CoE, they're all going to be functional. They're going to be inhabited. That's where like an NPC goes to sleep, right? That's where his family lives. That's where he goes for his food and everything like that. Initially, the towns are going to be procedurally generated, but you can start your own town from scratch. It takes 3 parcels of land and I think a well and 9 characters, and you've started a hamlet, and you can grow that hamlet into a village and then into a town or a city or whatever the case might be, and you have to maintain it. There's if you don't maintain your buildings, there's a decay system, and if you don't maintain your buildings, the first thing that's going to go is the roofing. It's going to collapse in, and then if there's floors, if it's a multi-level like a 2 or 3 story home, then the top walls and then the inner flooring is going to collapse. And the last stage, I think, is where it starts becoming like overgrown with what if ivy would be indigenous to that local biome, maybe it starts getting overgrown by some of the local plants and everything. But there you will see we'll again get to that in a little bit, but you'll see ghost towns and things like that during the course of your playing experience. If you play the game long enough, I think it's going to be pretty phenomenal. You can own a plot of land, right? And in that plot of land, which is 64 meters by 64 meters, and you can own multiple plots of land connected to each other. If you come to the right arrangement with the landowner, which would be either the mayor or the count, whatever the case might be. But you can actually make your own player-made dungeons underneath. You'll be able to mine. You'll be able to kind of like make rooms.
I've talked to my viewers about that. Yeah, that's one concern I have is like how they would go about with the digging and all that. But I mean, if they got to figure it out, then more power to them. But I hope they could pull that off. That's one of the things as much as I want it to happen, that I am like cautiously skeptical of, because it just sounds like such a tall order, being able to dig out your own dungeons and stuff.
I think it'll be similar to the mechanics that I used to dig in Life is Feudal. There's going to be a transition area where you kind of like where you go in. And, that might give you that feeling of like an instance, right? But it won't be an exclusive instance. Anybody else can follow you in kind of thing, because, the world itself is built kind of like, on this polygon, right? And the skin of the terrain is laid over it, for want of a better word. And so it's like a wireframe, and there's nothing underneath. It's like it's a wireframe that goes down to kind of like whatever the water table is. So there'll be that, like if you're making a mine or a mine shaft, there'll be, I guess you create that. And then from there, you'll kind of like, when you build or when you dig, you'll basically, they're like 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter cubes, right? And
Yeah.
and
So
so when
you have an amount of space to work with.
exactly, and I think that's how that will be handled on that. And again, by building your own towns or being part of a town, you'll be able to start your own governments. We'll get into the contract system again briefly in a little while, but you can have voting procedures. You can charge taxes. You can make certain behaviors illegal. If there's enough reason for it, you can declare war. Either on another town or another county or duchy, whatever the case might be. So so that has its own, again, that can be its own 90-minute show, just talking about settlements and housing. You know, you you know, uh, you might have the key to somebody's house, right? You might have stolen it from him. You might have pickpocketed, and you've got the key to their house. But just because you got the key to their house,
Doesn't mean you know where they live.
well, it doesn't mean you know where they live, and it doesn't mean that if you do enter the house that you do so legally, because you haven't had permission to enter the house, right? So if that town has, as part of its inherent law system, that it is illegal to enter somebody else's property without their permission, you're already breaking the law. Now, you're not going to, I believe that the game will flag you for doing that, but other people won't know that you did that. There is a forensics skill that will be in the game. So, you're probably going to have detectives that if you got broken into and stuff got stolen, they might try and piece things together. And again, we don't know enough about that system yet to know exactly how that works. But, we'll touch on that with the crime system at the moment. There is also kind of like a bounty system, where the game will kind of like, the more deviant deeds you do, the more of a bounty it puts on you. And when you do get caught and killed, that will accumulate perhaps the amount of your life spark that you lose. So there's I think deviant play is going to be fun, but again, there's risk versus reward with it,
as there should be. But I was curious now, since you mentioned that real quick. I was wondering, like what keeps somebody from just going and mass murdering everyone? Do they take the penalty of like the other people's like life sparks as their own? I think I remember reading that. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not.
I believe that it is something like that. I don't know if it's a direct one-to-one translation, but again, it's kind of like their deeds get accumulated, right? And so if and when they do get caught, their punishment is all the greater in terms of their soul spark. And again, maybe Snipe will be able to address that for us here.
Okay.
As to kind of like, a little bit of the punishment system on the crime there, Snipe. If a quick little sentence or paragraph on that would probably be appreciated by the people. We'll keep charging on here. Again, to try and respect that we had said that we were going to be going 90 minutes, and we're over that already. Resources, Noz, if you can bring up the next thing for resources. Resources in the game, in most MMOs, resources are kind of like fixed. You know where the iron mine is or where there's a mine, and very often in that mine you can mine coal, you can mine iron, you can mine titanium, and when you mine out the nodes in 30 minutes time, they respawn, right? And you just go back to the mine again. In Chronicles of Illyria, the resources are finite. And by finite, my understanding and at least my interpretation of finite resources is much like in real life. We have finite resources on planet Earth. There's only so much iron in the ground, right? But over thousands of years, it hasn't all been mined out. But individually, mines will get depleted, gold nodes will get depleted, etc., etc. And so, if you can imagine, somebody finds, and there'll be a prospecting skill and a mining skill, and somebody finds, for example, like a gold mine, and it's, oh wow, this is a really nice, it looks like a rich vein and a rich deposit. And rather than kind of like going back into town, you might see little towns crop up around that, much like you saw the shanty towns cropping up around gold mines during the gold rushes here in the United States in the 1800s, right? And then when that gold is depleted and it runs dry, you'll see them become, the ghost towns, like the ghost towns that you see in Arizona and Nevada and California, because there's nothing else around there to sustain the economy. And so, it's gone
That's a
on.
good point. Yeah.
And what a great place for somebody else to move into, right? And again, start tunneling underground and doing their own stuff. Think it could be really, really amazing. And again, as I said, you're going to have different resources in different parts of the map, kind of.
Okay.
Any yeah, go ahead.
I was
was
just
going
gonna
to
say
ask if
that
you had any questions or comments.
I was gonna say that Snipe said, right, if you get caught and brought to justice, the punish in one way or another is going to take the form of spirit loss on your own soul. Go around as a character killing everyone, and if you get caught, that character will sacrifice all of its remaining lifespan. Though the form sacrifice takes may depend on the kingdom you're in, and their laws will always boil down to lifespan / spirit loss in the end, though. Okay, fair enough.
Yep. Noz, let's move on to the next one, items and interaction. And then after this, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6 more frames after this one. Items and interaction. As you saw when Noslim showed that video of the guy going through the mine, and you saw the clay jars down there. Like I said, in most games, those are just going to be eye candy. In Chronicles of Lyria, those you can actually interact with them. Presumably, you might be able to pick them up. You might be able to look in them. You might even be able to lift them up and drop them. And I don't know, maybe if you drop them hard enough, maybe they'll break. I don't know if that's the case. But pretty much everything that you see in Chronicles of Illyria, whether it's furniture, whether it's, weapons, clothing, etc., those are all movable pieces that you can interact with them. In fact, again, in part of that video that Noz has also been showing at various points during the stream, you can pick up a torch, you can light other things, you can pull levers. I mean, everything kind of like has a reason and a purpose on there. There's no, if you drop something in most games, either you can't drop it, you have to click on destroy in your backpack. Or if it drops to the ground, maybe it stays there for like 2-3 minutes before it despawns. Whereas in Chronicles of Lyria, it's going to stay there. And, if you drop your sword, it's going to stay there and somebody else might pick it up and say, oh, wow, I can use that. Or they might take it back to a smith and sell it and kind of like, make an iron ingot back out of it. Because
how long? We need to know how long it stays there, because otherwise, give it a few months and holy crap, Illyria is going to just be litter all over the place. We're going to need a cleanup crew.
Yes and no. With finite resources, the thinking is that people aren't going to be dropping that kind of stuff. You can do that in Ultima Online, right? Because you just go back to the mine, go back and mine more iron ore. It was limitless. But if you have an iron mine that's depleted, or let's say you live in the swamp might be, let's say you live in the tropical wetlands and there's no iron, right? Well, number one, you're going to be probably making your weapons out of local indigenous materials. But if you do find out, you're not going to be littering that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Stuff will rot if left unattended.
Again, there's a decay system in the game. Okay. So if you drop some food on the ground, it's going to decay. I don't know whether it'll decay in 2 days or 2 weeks, but there is a decay system that will kick in and take place. But it's it's probably best to say that it's a very, very slow despawn time. It's probably the best way to look at it.
Gotcha. And if you do, someone else will take that iron weapon back to a forge and turn it into something they can use if you abandon it.
Yeah, exactly. As I was saying, you just recycle it, Noz, next one, please. Loot and inventory.
Yeah, you're free to come to my town and litter all you want. I'll clean it up.
So with loot and inventory, again, most games, horrible. plate armor +2 drops from a fucking wolf. Are you kidding me? You know, it's what would a wolf be doing with that? Elder
He's
Scrolls
training.
Online.
He's training up. He wants to be a
No
knight.
kidding. Elder Scrolls
Don't hate him.
Online. I used to be able to run with 40 to 60 siege weapons in my pocket. You know, and you know your armor, your typical 6 slots, right? Chest, legs, feet, hands, helmet, and you switch it out, and it kind of like, again, you depending upon where you're going or what you're going to be doing, depending upon what stats you want, you know, +3 gloves of stealth and that kind of stuff. You build basically kits like that. And again, that's not going to be what's happening in Chronicles of Valyria. What you see is kind of like is what you get. If you see a guy that's wearing +2 plate armor and you kill him, you can take that +2 plate armor. Everything you saw that he was wearing is going to be on him for you to loot, plus anything he might have had in a backpack or in his pockets or anything like that. When you kill an animal, you're only going to get from that animal resources. So you might be able to get sinews, you might be able to get hide, meat, bones, fur,
Piles
teeth,
of gold.
whatever. Yeah, no gold. You're not going to get 2
What?
copper for killing every rat in the sewer.
That wolf doesn't
of the
carry
starting
around
tin.
gold. How does he buy food?
That's right. It's kind of it's really nice the way that all of this is. You know, when you look at any one of these systems, it's kind of like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. But when you start looking at everything that we've gone over in almost like the last 2 halves, you start to get this picture of just how amazingly fucking cohesive all of this is and why it's taking quite a while to develop. Again, bear in mind it's a relatively small indie team, but it's moving, and it's, we're excited to see it move.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
next.
I just wanted to
Go ahead.
comment on the complex layered clothing and armor. If I understand correctly, if you knock somebody out, you can loot their stuff like on their outer layers. But if you want to get in like into their like hidden pockets and stuff, you're gonna have to coup de grace them, right?
That is my understanding, correct.
Okay, because they'll have like
And
hidden pockets and stuff like that,
Yep.
and you have to search them. But in order to do that, if they're knocked out, it's not really going to work because they'll just
yeah,
they'll come
and
out of it. So
you'll
murder
have
time.
weight limits. Yeah, you'll have weight limits as to what you can carry, right? So there's only going to be so much you can loot from him if you're already carrying stuff yourself. But if you've got a horse or a horse and wagon hidden in the in the trees nearby, maybe you can circumvent that. But you're not going to be able to put a shovel with a 4-foot long handle into a backpack that's only 2 feet high. It's not going to work. The game won't allow you to do that. However, you can strap that shovel to the backpack if the backpack has loops. So it's amazing some of the detail that they're going down to, like your clothing. Your clothing is basically going to be in 3 layers, and we're going to get into that. In fact, right next, Noz, we can actually transition to the next screen, which is survival mechanics, because your clothing is going to very much, what you're wearing is going to be determined more by where you are rather than by what you're doing. So, for example, if you're in the far north, you're going to probably be wearing more kind of like woolen kind of underclothes and everything like that. And you're going to be wearing kind of like leather and furs as your outer garments. Whereas if you're down south, let's say you're in the semi-arid desert, you might just be wearing very light linen just on the base layer, layer 1, and you might not even be wearing stuff on layer 2 or layer 3 because you would now be having so many layers of clothing that you'd be overheating. And they have this thing called homeostasis in the game. It plays a very, very large part in the survival mechanics of the game, which is, how much fatigue do you have? How well fed are you? How well watered are you? What is your protection from the elements, whether that be rain or sun or snow or the cold or the heat, etc. All of these things get factored in. And there's actually there's a whole survival skill tree. It's like a whole flower where, you know, you've got water divining, you know, for finding water that might not be a stream. I don't know if they're going to have, like, you know, the little hazel rods that you walk around till they twitch or whatever. I don't know, but it's,
Well,
again,
divining rod, yeah.
yeah, divining rod, exactly. It's just going to be, it's amazing. You know, food and drink isn't going to be there for a +2 stat to strength. I mean, you know, it'll certainly refresh and reinvigorate you, but it's not for buffs. It's for actual kind of, like, you know, survival and everything like that. It's you know, as the devs have mentioned, survival mechanics are a deep feature which encourage players to be more properly prepared whenever they leave a settlement. It also fuels the economy and provides a reason to hunt food, create settlements, trade furs, craft supplies, etc. And speaking of crafting, Noz, next panel, please. We are moving along, just 4 or 5 of them left, guys. So when it comes to crafting, wow, again, this one's definitely like a 90-minute freaking thing that we're gonna try and condense down into 3 minutes.
I had some people ask me about blacksmithing and stuff. I wasn't sure. I think they mentioned they wanted to be like kind of like skill based in a sense.
Yes.
But
It
yeah,
is going to be amazingly skill based. We are not able to put up kind of like the little video snippets and the gifs that Snipe had made for this. But again, I'm not going to go into the typical MMO stuff. Most people know how it is. You kind of like, you put in your ingots, you click produce, and you watch the little bar go until they're produced. With Chronicles of Illyria, it's going to let me actually read what I'd put down on my notes, because that'll be quicker than me trying to start from the get-go and reinvent it. Okay, so in Chronicles of Illyria, it's based upon audio and visual cues while you're using the various techniques specific to that craft. So if you're going to be smelting ore, if you're going to want to be making something, you actually, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to light your forge. It isn't automatically lit, whereas in most games you just put it in the forge, click produce, and it's done. Here you're going to light them. You're going to use the bellows, and how you use the bellows is going to determine how the coals are glowing inside that forge. And some parts of the coals might be glowing a deep dark red, others white, others yellow. There might be a different shimmering of the air above them, and there might even be like a hissing. So all of these are going to be audio and visual clues as to where to place your iron and what is happening with that lump of iron ore. There'll be audio and visual clues as well. So you'll know exactly when is the optimum time to take it out and to start beating it and pounding it, and to turn it into an ingot, etc. And then what to do with that ingot to turn it into a blade, or to cast something with it. And these are very complicated and very complex procedures. And as you are learning these techniques, as Sniper said, you might accidentally, discover other techniques while you're working on your own, but also you're leveling up your crafting skills while you're doing this. However, these are the kinds of things that you can script your OPC to be doing while you're offline once you are proficient in them. So when you're proficient in knowing how to start the forge and the bellows and where to place the iron on the coals and when to pull it out and how to beat it, that can all be done into a script, and boom, it'll take the same amount of time, but it's all done kind of like, while you're offline.
right, because your character now knows how to do it. Well, if you tried initially, your character would know what the hell to do. Makes sense.
The crafting is meant to be the most in-depth and challenging and intuitive and realistic crafting system out there, but it's not meant to be a chore, so that if you already know how to make the base components, your character will make those base components for you. You don't want to have to kind of like, again, be just spending hours and hours of gameplay time basically just clicking and falling asleep at the keyboard kind of thing.
Yeah, that skill flower you seen earlier listed all the skills, but Soulbound Studios is reaching out to its player base and they're very strict on this, who have extensive real life experience as a medieval blacksmith style blacksmith, etc. And they're working with those guys to actually put in the game the process of doing it in that time. And so it's as true to life as they can make it in a video game is the goal I think they're working towards, and it seems like they're doing a good job of it.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. Noz, if we can switch to the next one, which is technology. And you'd heard me mention here while we were talking about crafting, how, you know, while you're working and while you're learning and while you're crafting stuff, you might discover other things and other techniques, etc. Skill trees, or technology trees rather, in a typical MMO, as you can see in that image, they're kind of like, they're relatively linear. They might branch out and everything, but it's capped. There are a certain number of technologies, and once you've learned and opened them up, that's it. It couldn't be fucking more different in CoE. Again, something that to me is just so exciting, because it's, and I don't have a picture of it. Think of it almost like the skill chart that you saw. Think of it as being radial, right? And now here, as you're discovering and you're learning something, and you can learn in guilds and in schools, which we'll talk about in a little while. But as you learn something, it basically, it pushes the technology, the known knowledge in the world, to another level, right? And the story engine is going to, let's take shipbuilding as a good example. Let's say that they are trying to make bigger and bigger hulls, or thicker hulls, or faster hulls. As the ones that are available are being researched, if the story engine is seeing that, oh yeah, you know, the majority of shipbuilders in the game are looking at, you know, bigger hulls or faster hulls, the devs are then going to kind of like put in a technology for bigger and faster hulls that can then be researched, but they're not going to tell us when it's put in. You know, these are things that will have to be discovered and researched almost intuitively, much like they are in real life. Now, there are a couple of caveats to that. You know, I can't research a supersonic plane or anything like that. It has to fall in within the vision of the game, and it has to fall in obviously within the game mechanics that are going to be within the game. But you're going to be able to research stuff like, you know, different poisons, alchemy, you know, all the blacksmithing and the crafting tools and everything like that. You might be able to research new fighting techniques, perhaps, or maybe there's, you know, a limited amount of them in the world. But we don't know these things, and the devs won't tell it to us. So there's never this thing of, well, I reached the very, very top of what I can craft. Because there might always be something. When you're better at crafting, it means you have more techniques available to you. The more techniques available to you, the more you can research. The more you can research, the more you can open up new technologies that weren't in the game before. And I mean, that's fucking, it's brilliant when you think about it. It is absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's like it's ever changing, and like correct me if I'm wrong, but the game is they want it to run for like a 10-year span, right? That's the goal, 10-year long story.
Correct. Yes.
So because of this like ever evolving system, the game at 10 years from release could be completely different than whenever it first started, just because of the technologies and everything constantly like advancing over time.
Yep. And then
basically, and Snipe just chimed in. You know, you can research or submit a proposal for a specific field, and this is what's smart about it is the developers are using that as a mechanism to say, hey, this is an experienced gamer in this field, and this is what they're looking for in game. Now, they may totally dismiss that, or they may say, yep, let's add it to the game, and then reward that player for their research it's now been added to the game, but that's not going to be inherent. Obviously, that they're not going to see that part of it, but they're going to be successful in their research suddenly, and now that new item is added to the game. CoE is like no other game that I've been involved in the last 20 years, in that it's allowing its player base to actually mold and shape the game. No other game has allowed its player base to have this much involvement in the design of the game, and this is just another mechanic to further that point.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions or comments on that, Peeve?
No, I think I got all that.
Alrighty, then we've just got 2-3 screens left, guys and gals. Noz, next one, please. Player communities. Basically, in again typical MMO, you're going to have your guilds or your clans, right? But there aren't usually very many actual in-game guilds, and if there are, it's like the Thieves Guild or whatever. And you communicate, with your friends through a friends list or through global chat, etc. This game, because of the size and the scale and kind of like and how the interaction between the players is designed to work, is you kind of like you have your family, and you can think of your family kind of like as your guild or your clan, so to speak. Guilds in Chronicles of Illyria are more like in the medieval sense, where they were more associated with a profession. So you would have the Guild of Stonemasons, you would have the Guild of blacksmiths, or weavers or beekeepers, or whatever the case might be. And so it's more kind of like professional organizations that you can belong to. Research will be done also through schools and universities. And the main difference between guilds, where there'll be a lot of research done as well, is the guilds are kind of like more of a, as I say, they're more of kind of like an economic kind of thing. And you'll be able to, if a guild discovers something, they'll be able to put a patent on it and maybe license that patent, etc. Whereas in a school and university, it's more kind of like, I don't know that I would call it common knowledge, but it won't be patented per se. It'll be available to people who perhaps reach a certain level of learning or knowledge on a thing. Associations are kind of like, how would we look at associations? Associations would be, they kind of like, they provide cultural and social functions. Like, you might have an association of the people who support planting trees in a county or something. I'm giving stupid examples right now for trying to quickly think on my feet, etc. But and you can belong to almost as many of these as you want to, right? Family, you can only belong to one family. Yeah, perhaps if you marry into another family, you can belong to two at the same time. But generally speaking, you're going to belong to two families. But guilds, you can belong to multiple guilds. I think you can only belong to one school or university at a time, but you can also belong to multiple associations. Communication in Chronicles of Illyria, it's meant to be localized. You can kind of like, you can whisper, where literally only the person next to you or a couple of people next to you can hear it, and nobody else around you would even know that had happened. You can be whispering to NPCs or to other players, especially strangers you just met, that you don't know who they are, they don't know who you are, but you don't want everybody else around knowing what your character or identity you're traveling in. You can talk and you can shout. And talk would be like, maybe everybody at the table would now hear what was being said, whereas whisper would only be the person next to you. And I think you can talk in a loud voice where maybe the several tables in the tavern would hear you, and then you can do a shout where everybody in a marketplace kind of like would hear you. And it's meant to be localized like that. Because of the way the game is being designed, and no fast travel and this and that, it's interacting in a completely different way than we're normally used to.
Yeah. I did have a question here. Do we know yet if it's gonna be, if they want it to be like text based chat or like over the mic chat?
It'll be text based chat.
Okay, thank God. Like part of me kind of wants it to be like over the mic, but that it would get annoying
We
real quick.
we know that people are going to be using TeamSpeak and Discord and everything like that anyway, right?
True.
We're all going
Very
to be
true. Yeah.
metagaming anyway, so there's no reason to do that. But it's easier to do if they don't have to figure out how to incorporate a voice over, you know, a VoIP, a voice chat into the game. But also remember, you have different tribes, and some of those tribes speak different languages, and so some of the communication, although there's kind of like the common chat, I think it's Proto-Neran or something is the language. I didn't follow the language too much, but a lot can be communicated via hand gestures and expressions on the face. You know, if you run into somebody that you don't know and they're of a different tribe and you don't have a common language in the game between you.
So different tribes, like you might try to communicate to somebody, and whenever you type like English, it'll translate it into your tribe's language, and then it's same for the other person, and you just
I
won't understand each other.
I think
Unless
that's how it's supposed to be. I think that's how
okay.
it's supposed to be. Vi, who did a lot with communication, she did a great. And by the way, a lot of this stuff,
That's
I encourage
correct.
you guys
Okay, wow. All right.
to go to the Chronicles of Illyria website and look through the dev journals. Vi did a brilliant dev journal on communication, and it was more like you. Let's say you wanted two apples, and the guy at the market stall didn't speak the language you had. You would point at the two apples and raise your hand with two fingers. You know, and then they might, you know, show how many fingers for the amount of money it would cost, etc. You know.
Right, it's like wow, an orc couldn't understand a gnome. Yeah, except between players.
Yes,
If
exactly.
if you're part of the horde and you go talk to the alliance, they're gonna understand you because
Yep.
it's another player. You know, they're saying that it's gonna translate your, say it's two people talking in English, typing in English to each other. It's gonna translate that into like a different language, which is gonna just, it's like in Ultima Online. Bit of a loose example here. Ultima Online, whenever you die, you turn into a little ghost, and then
I remember those.
yeah,
Yep.
and then you whatever you type, it translates it into like small and capital O's. So your character's like ooh, but it's like the same like format.
Unless you had the spirit speak.
Yeah. Wait, Horde cannot
Yeah.
speak to Alliance and WoW and vice versa. Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Can't speak cross faction and WoW. It translates your words. I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
WoW seems to have actually have impressed me for once in my life. All right. Fair enough.
And Noz, if you can just go back to the loop of the regular video, or even as we're chatting and wrapping up, you can go to that Silver Mines video and start it playing from where we left off previously. Might be a good thing. People might be able to get to see a little bit of the protocom. There we go. That one works.
Well, we still got contracts and conflict. So
Yeah, contracts we've kind of like basically touched on a little bit, where you can form the governments and everything, but you can form contracts to fulfill trade things, or I'm going to go collect X amount of plants. You can put contracts up like in a bulletin board uh, at the tavern, and this is kind of like on a very low and basic level. But contracts can also be done on a county level, on a duchy level, on a kingdom level for writing laws that there are implicit and explicit contracts. And again, there's a great dev journal that goes into them in depth. But again, breaking a contract can trigger part of that criminal system. And depending upon, you know, what conditions were in the contract, it might even put a bounty on your head again, you know. And then the last piece of conflict, and no need to put up the screen for that, Noz. I think this video looping is better than that. One thing I want to kind of like make very, very clear to everybody is that although you don't have to participate in it, you can, you know, you can be a shepherd, a beekeeper, a blacksmith, or, you know, whatever, a miner, a prospector, cartographer, whatever. Conflict is the name of the game of Chronicles of Illyria. It is the biggest freaking going to be the most fun sandbox out there, period. Because when we talk about conflict or PvP, people are always thinking about, oh yeah, sword and board, you know, and how are we going to kill him, how we that. Oh my God, It's going to be on so many different levels in this game. It's going to be political. It's going to be espionage. It's going to be sabotage. It's going to be even the tax rate as a mayor that you set in your town. If it is more attractive to NPCs in a neighboring town who have a higher tax rate, guess what? You're stealing. Those NPCs might start migrating to you if there are enough jobs and housing and it's a low crime rate. Those NPCs are going to start migrating to you. So you guys might even be in the same county, but as mayors, you're already in conflict over the NPCs that are available. Because again, there's only a finite number of NPCs available, right? If you're a miner and you're mining ore and you know that the ore is getting low in that mine, but you don't want to be leaving town and your fellow miners don't want to be leaving town, you guys are going to be scrambling over that. You're going to be basically almost like fighting to extract those last bits of ore out of that mine. It's the conflict is going to be on so many levels. It's going to be so much fun. And again, it is completely up to you as to on what level you engage in it. You know,
I want to be pulling the strings behind the scenes. I like that thought.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much. It's going to be so much fun. But that's I'm going to wrap up for now. I'm going to give the floor to you, Pete, for any questions you still might want to ask or communicate with your members and followers and everything like that. And I will say that if you guys like this and you enjoyed this, I told Pete that what we can do is we can do another stream in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 whatever weeks time, and you guys
go
decide
into detail on specific things.
You guys in Pete's community talk amongst yourselves and decide what you want to deep dive on, and I'll prepare something that's more in depth, because literally we have just, as you can tell, we've just scratched the surface on every little category so that I could squeeze all the categories in for you. But thank you for coming, and I hand this over to Pete right now.
All right. Did any of my viewers, did any of y'all have anything in particular to ask? I was gonna ask one thing. I swear I remember reading in a dev blog about if you wanted to go the route of, like, say, becoming a lich, like that would be something that would be possible but extremely rare, and a lich would have to protect the what's called a phylactery.
Correct.
Which is essentially its soul or its heart.
Yep.
And if the phylactery is destroyed, does the lich, like, didn't they say that the lich would, like, that's it? Like, if your phylactery is destroyed, it's permadeath for you, and that's the risk reward of being a lich. Like, you're super powerful, but you don't want to have your phylactery get destroyed.
My understanding is not only is the lich destroyed, but the soul is destroyed. It's got
so the soul
phylactery.
Yeah,
with that soul, it is all the experience and everything like that is learned. So, a lich, I think, can gather, knowledge and experience and everything from other people and kind of like store that in his soul. And then he kind of like, he transforms into a lich. I've forgotten the exact mechanics. And at that point that he becomes a lich, basically his soul is locked at that particular moment in time. He doesn't, I think, learn anymore or do anything because his soul is now not in his body; it's in the phylactery, right?
Is he essentially immortal until it's destroyed?
He's whatever form, I guess, in game a lich will take. So, and I'm not.
I know.
Sure.
I know it's not.
He's going to be Uber,
but yeah.
He's going to be like almost like a little demigod, right?
Right.
But when he dies, when that phylactery is destroyed, his soul is gone. You have to start. Right from the get go again. And Snipes confirming that. So that
Witches are effectively immortal. Yeah, right. Your soul normally carries on when you die, so that some of your progress carries over to that soul's next character. But if a lich dies, that soul is gone forever. And just the fact that it's extremely rare, but the fact it would be a possibility, and you would know that going into it, and you take that extremely high risk reward scenario, like that's entirely on you. That's 100% on you if you even get the opportunity to begin with. And then if the dungeon, I think the example they had on the dev blog was as a lich, like if you had like a you can essentially dig out your own tunnels and like create basically your own dungeon. You could put your phylactery like in the core of that dungeon, and if somebody were to happen upon it or know that you're the lich and go after you and get in there, you become essentially your own like raid boss within your own dungeon to protect your phylactery, which like that would be incredible. Yeah.
If you find that fascinating, you should look into the soulmate mechanic as well, because every soul will have a soulmate. It may not be in the world at the same time as you, but every soul has a soulmate, right? So, and if your soulmate kills you, that's permadeath. But if you and your soulmate meet and you come together and you work together, you'll both benefit from that very, very greatly, and you'll both be very powerful for it.
What? Okay, that's new to me. That's interesting. Also, I there is a question that I definitely have to ask because so many of my viewers have been asking, and it kind of creeps me out that a lot of my viewers have been asking this like on their own. It's the one question I've gotten from viewers, from multiple viewers. Can you eat people?
No. There will be no cannibalism in the game. There won't be any kind of like mutations. As in there won't be any loss of limb or anything like that. You know, nobody wants to play 6 months as a freaking guy with no legs or arms, right?
That's I guess that's a good point. Yeah, if you're going back to your body and somebody ate it,
you can't. Yes, you
can't. The community does meme quite a bit about eating Kippiks, though. There's like recipes for them and everything. They're like little squirrel figures. I don't know. Some people hate them, but there's that out there. It's not real though. It's just me.
I was gonna say, for the sake of argument, what if it's the body of somebody who just permanently died? Just for the sake of argument, there, it's, they don't need their legs and arms anymore.
No, but if it's somebody who permanently died, then it's not him anymore anyway, right? It's
dinner.
His soul would have transitioned. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to custom make game mechanics
I don't think so either.
To differentiate for the odd occasion when there's some freaking for corpse diggers or whatever to eat on when there's going to be so much other animals to hunt and eat in the first place. It doesn't really add anything to the game.
Right. No, I definitely understand. Let me scroll up, see if anyone had any other stuff. How many of them can there be at once? What, Giant Dad, are you talking about liches and stuff? I imagine extremely.
They're going to be extremely rare.
Yeah, exactly. Same with mages and stuff, right?
Yes.
At least starting out. But if someone actually discovers magic and starts teaching it to people and stuff like that and building upon it, by the end of the 10-year cycle, magic could be a very common thing, if I understand correctly.
Well, it's not so much magic in that it's talents, right? So you'll have a talent that you may not be aware that you even have. And somewhere along the line, you'll spark something in the story engine that helps you discover that hidden talent that you have. And those talents may, in some cases, be almost magical, but it's not really magic, right? So
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think someone said the following asked, for the clothing system, is it like Morrowind's? Like you can wear plate armor with a robe over it or something somewhat different?
You'll definitely be able to do that. You've got Snipe, you were on the stream when we discussed this one. What is it like? Something like 23 jewelry slots that you can have, but understand again, you're not wearing rings of +3 stealth and +2 constitution and things like that. They're mainly going to be decorative, right? And if they've got precious stones and everything like that in them, don't be surprised if you get ganked on the way home from the tavern and you find yourself in the gutter, basically naked and no jewelry left on you. You know, it's. I'm so looking forward. You know, we all want the game to be out already.
Yeah.
You know,
I just want to exist in the game world.
yeah, exactly. But you know, we have to be patient. And we'll get there.
We don't have any kind of there's no I know there's no set release date, but is there a ballpark?
Nope. Right now it is best not to. In fact,
yeah, probably so.
Dates are kind of like a tricky thing. The studio has tried to provide dates to kind of like to give the community something, right? But being a small studio, and when they don't get fulfilled, it leaves a sour taste in everybody's mind. And oh my god, if they didn't meet the date, then how can they make a game? And blah. It's just best left alone. And when they produce something, they say, "Hey, we've got something done. It's finished, and we're releasing it this Friday," kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, which is probably a better route, especially since like almost every game release, even AAA game release these days, is it's coming out on this date, and then it's like, oh, we have to delay it 6 months. So, which is fine, delay it. It's better to have a finished game than than not. But it probably is the better route to not give any
hard dates.
Yeah.
I definitely think we'll have something playable this year. It may not be a full alpha client. It may be something like a pre-alpha client or something. But I definitely think they're working really hard on a pre-alpha client that we may get to see soon. Registered trademark hashtag maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, that we've. Some of us have kind of like what's known as 10K access. We're kind of like, some of the higher backers and everything. And we've seen stuff that's under NDA, the non-disclosure agreement. I obviously don't want to kind of like, tread on that, but I can say that I can tell you that I've seen enough that I know that Alpha isn't coming out next week. But I don't think it's also going to be kind of like more than 3 to 6 months away kind of thing. Now, that is me speaking. For me, myself, not for the studio, not for my community, not for the kingdom or anything like that. But I would expect that we get to see some kind of pre-alpha or alpha experience before the end of the year that the Alpha 1 backers, and who knows, maybe even some of the other backers can get to participate in. We'll see.
You'll see some of the content that they've been releasing publicly that's very low poly, and that is actually their pre-alpha client that they're working on and that they're showing off. So, and they're making great progress on that. So when you see the low poly version, you think, oh, that's not what I seen in this fancy video. That's really high poly, gorgeous stuff. There is a low poly client that they're working on that we hope to see soon.
Is that Illyria Mud?
No. So Illyria Mud was the pre-Illyria client. It was a concept. They're actually doing something completely different. So it went from Mud to voxel based and then to a low poly UE4 version. And so the idea here is this is much more beneficial for them so that they can just build the mechanics into that low poly version and then, place the high poly over it. And then voila, you have an alpha client.
Okay. And somebody asked, let me see. There was a few other questions. Gabby asked, "Can we have unique weapons like a sword I designed?"
Don't even get me freaking started as to how amazing that is going to be. Gabby, you are going to love like weapon making in this game. Think of it as the easiest way I can quickly try and explain it to you is if you went like into like Sears and you bought an 82-piece socket wrench set, right? Now, not all of the sockets are going to work with all of them because they've got like those different size connector things, if you know what I'm talking about. But what will happen is you're not going to be able to like custom make a blade that's like 15.37 millimeters wide and 16.3 9 centimeters long, etc., etc. But what you are going to be able to do is you're going to be able to create a blade that might have different properties based upon the techniques that you use to forge it. Okay. And you can make that, maybe you make it as a short blade or a medium blade or a long blade. And then think of, at the end of that blade, it's going to have, for want of a better word, a socket, much like you'd find in that socket set, right, from Sears. And you're going to be able to put different things on it. You can maybe put a small handle, a hilt with a guard. Maybe on that long blade, you stick it on a long 10-foot pole and make it some kind of a slicing pole arm kind of thing, etc. Maybe you put a 2-foot long handle on it and another blade on the other end to make a double-bladed weapon that you use like a quarterstaff with a blade on either end. And you will, as you smith, you'll get to learn kind of like which socket pieces kind of like, connect with each other.
That sounds more in depth than I was expecting. Okay.
It's, oh my God, I can't wait to see some of the stuff that comes out,
Yeah. Let me see. I think I saw something else. Will there be different styles / looks of armor and weapons? Yeah, we
answered
just
that.
pretty
Yes,
much
yes, there
touched
will
upon
be,
that.
and we chanted that. Then somebody asked, will weapons that are realistically impractical will also be impractical in game? I think that for the most part, yes, is the answer to that. But allow them kind of like, this is kind of like a low to mid fantasy game. So you're going to have to allow for a little bit of the fact that we do have different tribes and there are tribal variations, but most of them have some kind of a grounding in real life and a take on it kind of thing, But there'll be, again, think of it as low to mid fantasy. I don't think you're going to find, like amazingly weird kind of like, beggaring belief type weapons out there, like you're not going to have a pole arm that you click a little spring in the handle and it extends 100 feet out and stabs somebody, kind of ridiculous weapon, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have something like that. But could you have a blade that kind of like looks a little bit different or a little bit thicker than you would find in real life because stylistically it kind of like matches? Yes, but again, I don't think to the extent of kind of like to where you have to suspend all belief in order to make it believable. I think immersion is very, very much a key goal of the dev team at the studio, and they're very passionate about the game. I mean, this is their baby, and I don't think that they're going to do stuff that they think would kind of like ruin and fuck up the experience for the majority of the player base either.
Right. I just thought of something. Is there are you gonna be able to like write books and letters and stuff in the game? Like type it out?
Yep.
Okay. So
scribing will be its own full tree. Forgery, scribing, all of those things.
That's right. I heard about forgery. So with forgery in mind, two-part question here. Is there going to be, like, say you're going to be a king. Say you send a letter to somebody. Are you going to have like a wax seal?
We don't know. We don't know. Kind of like, do I have to have a wax seal with this is cropped up with what about
Just
money?
So people know it's official, it's like from the king.
Yeah. But what if somebody kind of like engraves their own seal that mimics mine, right?
I was gonna say, can I steal your seal?
Yeah, you would
cause some trouble.
Theoretically, you'd be able to, And
you do have a signet ring. Snipe said. So
that's right. You do.
If your ring turns up missing, don't come for me. All right.
Yeah.
Just saying, is somebody
else.
That's right.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. I won't have to come to 2.5 hours into this live stream and be able to quote you.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do need to, at least I myself need to start wrapping this up. If you guys want to, I'm sure Noz does. He has a family. We normally run for 45 minutes. We wanted to make it 90 minutes to try and cover everything. as you guys can see, we've gone over 2.5 hours, and we could probably still chat for another hour or two, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But let us start to knock it on the head for tonight. This wasn't a one-time opportunity. Peeve, as I said to both yourself and your community, we extend an invitation to kind of like, pick a half dozen of these topics and that your community wants to deep dive into more, and we'll visit it again in 2, 4, 6 weeks time, whatever.
Yeah, I would love to, like, this was a nice like overview, and you had everything like lined up, and you got the gist of like a bunch of topics. But next time I definitely want to find some stuff to like dive into and
Yes,
get some details on, and just rant about random things and stuff.
absolutely.
That'd be good.
The problem with doing an overview the way that I did is that it raises more questions than it answers. So I understand, to those of you watching, oh, wow, but I want to know more about this and this and this. That's great. We've kind of like, it's not that it was intentional to hook you in, but that's what we're wanting. We want that curiosity. We want to theory craft with you. We want to get you up to speed with what we know as well, and have you join, whether it's not our particular community, have you join the CoE community in general, kind of thing, and go from there.
And if they did want to do that, what would they just go to the forums?
They can go to the forums. It's chroniclesofillyria.com. You can see that for Bordweall, I think Noslim posted a little bit further above a link to our Discord. The last link there actually goes, it's only like 4 or 5 messages up. Noswell posted an open link to our Discord. If you guys wanted to join our Discord, let us know that you're part of Peeve's community. We'll kind of like, we should maybe do a Peeve tag, Nos, or something like that to tag them in, let people know, give them kind of like kingdom member status or whatever. I don't know. We'll look at that.
I think they should get assaulted like everyone else. Oh, you're new? Let me talk to you. Come here.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. If you do join our Discord, be aware we have a very passionate community. You're going to have a bunch of people kind of like, oh, hey, have you picked a place to stay yet? Come, you might want to look at being with me. And you're going to get a lot of those. And I don't discourage that necessarily, because we want people to be passionate about their communities and recruiting for them. But it's, if you just say, hey, no, give me a couple of weeks and touch base back with me, then we have for the most part, a very, very mature and respectful community they're not going to harass you.
And just to touch on something with your Discord, if anyone was actually interested and went over to the Bordweall Discord, if you go to the recruitment channel, what he's talking about with people wanting to recruit you to their community, and you just scroll up, it's amazing to see like everyone like planning out their settlements and their like the lore and everything behind it and what they're gonna have. And this is people who actually have the packages to do this. They're gonna actually have these places in the game with these themes and this backstory and all that. And everyone's making up their own thing, and then you can go even further and go into that, because Bordweall it's the kingdom, and these are all people within the kingdom, and there's so many posts and settlements and cities and duchies and everything, and that's all. That's one kingdom on one server. So just the fact that there's so much of this going on across the entire community, it's nuts. There's so many people getting involved. It's crazy.
But don't buy the first car on the lot, because you joined the wrong county, and then you come talk to me and you want to join the Protectorate Duchy of Blood Oak and join my personal county. I'm going to say, no, you already joined that other county over there, and I don't like them, and now you're tainted, and I don't want you in my community. So
perfect. Just starting off strong. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, everybody. Snipe, Monty, thank you, mate. Way longer stream than usual, and you being here was invaluable in answering and addressing some of the
me and my viewers appreciate it as well.
Yeah. That's all I have, ladies and gentlemen. I am tired. I'm hungry. I'm an old goat, and I need to get going. Thank you, and we'll see you at our next stream in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. I'll talk to y'all later.
Most definitely, Pete. We'll do a quick little wrap up also in the Discord once we go off. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.